Hello and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. Now today we are going to be having a look at Metal Hurlant Resurgence. Now this one is actually going to be released in the UK on 19th of October. This movie is actually a TV series, entire second season of a TV series, which is essentially an anthology series. So because of that, there's no kind of through narrative as such. I'll come on to it again in a little bit, but just a little bit of a backstory. So Metal Hurlant essentially is the French name for what you may know as heavy metal, which was a kind of a popular sort of science fiction or fantasy magazine. And there have actually been a couple of animated movies and kind of things that have been inspired by it as well. So if you're a fan of the kind of stuff like Frank Frazetta and that sort of thing, you may want to check this out, and kind of very sort of somewhat misogynistic sort of sci-fi movies and things like that. This may be the thing for you. So, like I said, this is a second season consisting of 6 episodes, each of around 20 minutes or so, and they have a variety of different styles who you're probably going to recognise. I mean, no massive names, but you've got Scott Adkins, you've got Michael J. White, John Rhys Davies. It is a French and American co-production, so there's a lot of French actors in there too, although they are speaking in English, although I think some of them might be kind of a little bit ADR'd. And like I said, with all anthology series and movies and stuff like that, you tend to get a kind of highs and lows in regards to sort of quality here. Now, there is a kind of a thread that kind of binds them all together, and this basically is this Metal Hurlant, which essentially is this kind of living asteroid, which is essentially passing by all these kind of different worlds, and it maybe changes the fate of some things that happen. There are a couple of stories which have a somewhat of a crossover, and you probably get that obviously if you watch the whole thing, but generally speaking you can kind of watch them as a sort of separate entities, so to speak. I'll go through my 2 top ones. The first one being Endomorph, which is the second episode, which reminds me a lot of the kind of the future world Terminators, a bit like that, but it kind of crossed between Jeepers Creepers. That one's got Michael J. White in it. I kind of quite like that one. That one's probably a more a straight sort of sci-fi sort of story, if you like. The last one as well I thought was quite good. That one's probably the most twisty, I would say. All of these kind of stories have a kind of pretty much a twist ending, which works both for and against it. The last one is essentially a kind of virtual reality tale, which is kind of fun. Now, with the twist endings, because they happen, I think, near enough on all of them, I think all but one really, you kind of expect them. So what you see is not necessarily what you end up getting with these kind of, and they tend to be true a lot of these kind of anthology films. Now look at the highs and lows. This is pure pulpy sci-fi action. So if you're a fan of things like Sucker Punch, in the way that their dream sequences with the girl was fighting the massive sort of samurai robots, that's kind of what this is basically. So if you like those kind of sequences in Sucker Punch, then you may get a kick out of this. It's pure OTT science fiction fun, basically. Now, it being the short stories, there's not a lot of filler, so they kind of the plots are kind of quite tight and quite concise, which is both good because they don't kind of spend a lot of time sort of padding stuff out, but also you don't really ever kind of get to sort of know the characters all that well and stuff like that. But again, that's just the case with anthology films. Obviously, the effects and stuff here, it is all done on a kind of a TV budget, so some of the effects are kind of somewhat questionable. Again, it varies from episode to episode, but there's some of them are clearly sort of, the sort of lower budget sort of CGI and things. It kind of definitely has that TV feel, the kind of the makeup and some of the kind of the aliens that you will see have that sort of the Stargate TV show sort of feel to it, I have to say. And I think it can be accused of being somewhat kind of misogynistic towards women, but that's probably fair to say of the heavy metal stories in general, if I'm completely honest with you. And some of them kind of I find they were a little bit kind of hard to follow as well. But that being said, I think if you're a fan of just over the top science fiction films with lots of interesting kind of visual ideas, then you may want to check this one out. So it's kind of fun, I have to say. I did have fun watching this. but I don't think it's going to have any lasting appeal necessarily. So I'm going to give this one a 6.5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I will look forward to you next time. Bye for now.